Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Make sure to like the video, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our reviews and our DIY videos, guys. We're bringing to you today installing Taco Marine rub rail LEDs. What's up, guys? Bushwhacker with His Bounty. Today we're installing some LED navigation lights in the rub rail of my new to me 2003 C-Pro SV2100. So I wanted to do a little video. I checked out a video on YouTube, which the guy did a great job. His name is Salty Freedom. So if you want to check his out, feel free. He's the one that's got me started on this and the reason I'm doing it. So check out his video as well. There are a few things that I'm going to do just a little bit different. So I thought I would make one and there would be some more instructional videos for installing rub rail LEDs. The LEDs that I went with are the Taco Marine, and they are going to set perfectly flush. This is the housing, so as you can see, it's going to line up exactly with my rub rail now. It's not going to be any overhang or anything, so it's going to look really good. Tools you're going to need for this. I've got a Dremel, so I'm going to use or attempt to use a Dremel with a cut wheel, because you will have to cut out a small section of your rub rail so your lights will fit flush. A ball peen hammer, which doesn't have to be ball peen, but a hammer to be able to use a punch to line up for your screws to mount your plate. A 5/8 drill bit to be able to mount your insert for your light. This is the actual size of your light, so a 5/8 drill bit is going to let this set inside the rail really nice and flush. And then smaller drill bits for your screws for your mounting plate. I've got a battery powered drill and very important, safety glasses, so when you're doing your cutting, protect those eyeballs. And Taco Marine, when you buy these lights, comes with your installation instructions, and they have a diagram on it as well to show you where to place your lights. So in this diagram, you set it up on your rub rail and you line up, there's a line on it to line up the actual bow and the center line of your boat. So I have slid this along and came to right here where you see this wire sticking out. This is going to end this starboard light to where the beam is going to stop right at the front of the boat and not carry over onto the port side. That's very important, just for approaching boats or boats that are just a touch off your center. You don't want your lights to be mixed up or where they can see both lights, because that can confuse another boater to which side they need to approach or pass on. So it's really important to get your lights in the right location. So I've marked on the port side as well, and this is my spot on the starboard side. So this hole was actually one of the screw holes in the rub rail. I'm using this hole to actually mount the plate, and my light is going to be just a touch forward. So I'm going to have to cut that piece of rub rail out. But what I did is I took the screw out, the stock screw, and I shoved this piece of wire through. And the reason I did that is there's an anchor locker on the other side, and then there is an open area underneath my deck, and I can get into that through an access hatch. So I wanted to see exactly where my wires were going to end up and make sure I would be able to get in there and work and be able to get everything wired up. So I've went in and I've checked that, so that works out really good. So that's just a tip, especially if you have all these screws. Pop one out, slide your wire through, and make sure you can access the area behind it, because the last thing you want to do is drill a 5/8 inch hole through your boat to realize that I can't get back there. There's no way to do that, and you may need to go with a different light or a different approach to that. So I'm going to go through the steps of what I'm going to do to cut the rail and install the lights. So hang out with us, guys, and hopefully you can learn something. All right, guys, a couple things that I didn't mention as far as things you'll need. And On the instructions list, there are required but not included list of things too, and it's a lot of the things that I did say, but marine grade sealant and an electrical connectors, they're on the list, so just make sure you got those things. And on this list it does say a 3/4 inch drill bit for these lights to slide through. This is a play out of Salty Freedom's video, and I suggest the same. Go with a 5/8 inch drill bit. The 3/4 is really sloppy. And I did the same thing as he did in his video, just to test it and make sure. Took a piece of wood, I drilled a 5/8 hole in it, and you can drop the wires right through it and put your light in, and as you can see, that is really snug. This is 5/8 inch again, so this is a much better fit to me, going with the 5/8 than the actual 3/4. The 3/4 is really loose, and you're gonna have to use more sealant, and it's just not gonna fit as tight. So just a big suggestion from me and from Salty Freedom's video, use the 5/8 drill bit. It is snug, but I feel like that's exactly what you're gonna want, especially in your rub rail. Here's a close up of that and just how nice that fits. It's a little twist, and you know, it still pops right out. So if you ever got to work on anything, you can still get it out nice, but it is a much better fit. All right guys, so first thing is I'm gonna mark my rub rail where my bracket needs to go. So I'm gonna line it up with this hole that I'm going to use for my screw to hold it on, and then on the inside you can see where it's notched for it to set back flush. So I'm just going to mark my rail right where those lines come down, and then I'll know where I need to cut it out. All right, so we're marked up now, as you can see, and we'll get the Dremel and start cutting. I'm a Dremel, and we are going to start cutting on the rub rail. Don't forget your safety glasses. Careful, it gets really warm, and when you get to the edges, be careful because it's going to want to grab and kick up. Which you can see it nicked the rubber part just a touch, but I mean nothing that you're ever really going to notice. But just be careful that when it gets to the edge, it doesn't run up. We're going to come over to this other edge now and get going on it. All right, so we've got through the rub rail now, and you can see where it's separating apart. So I can just take a pair of pliers or anything and give it a little bend and pop that piece right out. So for cutting this, I would suggest to get some good quality cutting wheels. I just have stock wheels that came with the Dremel, however many years ago that was that I got it. But I went through 2 wheels right there, so just get some good quality cutting wheels, and there'll be no problems. But as you can see, so that's cut out now, and this piece is going to mount right up, screw back in, and look just like it was stock, but it's going to house my new LED. So now we're going to go on to drilling through the actual rub rail itself into the hole and installing the light. All right, so now I am putting in my plate, and I'm just doing this just as a reference. So I am using the original screw hole and using just a screwdriver here, just so I'm not putting a ton of extra pressure on there, stripping out the hole, because this hole is the original. And the reason that I'm doing this is I just want to make sure I'm good and centered up where I need to be, so I can actually put this on, and then I'm going to mark with a Sharpie where my other anchor screw needs to go for my plate, and then I'm also going to mark the center of this for my light, so I can drill my 5/8 hole. I will start out with a pilot hole and then move up to a 5/8 hole, but this is just to be able to reference that. All right, so I'm just going to take my Sharpie now, mark up where I need to drill. So put a mark in the center of the hole where my light will go, and then I also put a mark in the center where my anchor screw will go. All right, so now we're just gonna back this screw back out. We're going to get a 3/16 drill bit, just to drill as a pilot. Pilot holes through, switch bits, and go with our 5/8. All right, we got our 5/8 bit mounted up. We're going to continue through the rail with that. As you can see, it wants to grab in that rubber. Just take your time and get it slow, and you'll be good. So now our 5/8 is through the hole. And grab our light, slide it in just for reference, make sure that's going to fit. And as you can see, it's really snug, so I'm going to just grab my drill bit and do a little cleanup there. You can see some of the fiberglass and stuff through there. All right, so it's all cleaned up. As you can see, we popped that light in there nice and snug. I'll zoom up so you can see that better. But as you can see, that light is very snug, and our plate will fit directly over that to give us a nice, clean, flush look. There's a plate. So that's going to go right back over that. And once that's all screwed back down in, that's going to fill up really nice and flush. I want to zoom in too on the hole there without the light. So as you can see, a 5/8 inch hole, that's a pretty good size hole. So you want to make sure you get it drilled and centered up correctly on your first attempt. All right, so as you can see, our rail's cut, our hole's in. You can see I popped the light in, but now I'm going to just pre-fit it with the bracket and everything. So I'm going to just slide my wires through. My light with the bracket on. As you can see, my hole's lined up from my original hole here and my mark where I marked it for my next hole for my screw. So I really like the way it's married up there. You can push it back. So your rub rail's flexing now just because you've got the screws out. So once that's pushed back, as you can see, that's going to fit up nice and flush. There is a slight gap in the top, but that's where our marine sealant is going to come in. We'll seal that all up, and you won't even notice that at all. So now we're going to put in our next hole. Suggestion is make sure to use a punch so your drill bit doesn't walk on that stainless. You're going to want to push the rail back too. Push your rail back as tight as you can get it. Get your punch where you want it, and give it a good strike. So that way your punch doesn't walk and you get it on the first shot. All right, now we have punched our stainless, and we've got a nice dimple there to start our drill bit. I've got a 5/64 drill bit, which is a small bit, but I want it to be smaller than my screw that I'm going to be inserting into the rail. So I'm going to drill my pilot through there, and then we can mount up our bracket and our light, add some sealant, and do some wiring, and we'll be ready to go on this side. So we're getting there very slowly. The stainless, it's no joke. It is very hard. So I actually stepped up a drill bit. I broke the small one, but then I got to thinking that I probably needed a bigger one to get through the stainless. So I'm not threading the screw through the stainless. So I'm going to step up to a little bit bigger drill bit, get through the stainless, and then switch back to the smaller one to where the actual screw will be gripping into the fiberglass in the boat. So take your time, drill slow in the stainless because it is extremely hard. All right, guys, so the drilling part of this is really hard. So we've got some oil now, and I've switched over to my Dremel, and it's just a real fine cutting bit on it. I'm going to see if I can get through it, and then maybe if the pilot hole's there, we can go from there with the drill bit. Make sure to oil your hole and to go slow because it does create a lot of heat. Alright, so that seemed to be the ticket as far as getting through, and maybe a real good quality drill bit may be all you need and just a slower speed on your drill, but I just got a standard set of bits here today, and this seemed to do the job, so we're going to see if we can get through it now with the drill bit that we've got a pilot. All right, guys, so the drilling part of this is really hard. So we've got some oil now, and I've switched over to my Dremel, and it's just a real fine cutting bit on it. I'm going to see if I can get through it, and then maybe if the pilot hole's there, we can go from there with the drill bit. Make sure to oil your hole and to go slow, because it does create a lot of heat. All right, so that seemed to be the ticket as far as getting through, and maybe a real good quality drill bit may be all you need, and just a slower speed on your drill. But I just got a standard set of bits here today, and this seemed to do the job. So we're going to see if we can get through it now with the drill bit that we've got a pilot. All right, now we're back with the bit. I'm going to oil the bit and oil the hole again. And now we're going to see if we can punch through with the drill bit. All right, so now that the pilot was in with the Dremel, the drill bit pushed through with no issues at all, and we have our hole there in the rail. So now we can fit everything up and make sure it's all going to fit good, but then we're going to go into our wiring and get everything ready to go, and our marine sealant before we do the final process. All right, so what we're doing now is we're just stepping up in our drill bit size to get it to where our screws will fit through. So I've got the actual screws for the rub rail, and I'm staying with that same size screw. So now I have stepped up from 5/32, and I'm going up now to 11/64, which I suggest just going one drill bit size at a time, just because that stainless is so hard, and you're going to end up breaking your bits or messing them up by trying to go too much at one time. So this should be the final size for our screw to fit through there, but keep in mind to do not drill through the boat with that size screw. I'm just going through the stainless steel rail. That way the screw will clear the rail, but then I'm going to go back down to a smaller bit through the fiberglass for the drill to grab hold of. So that's through, and our screw fits through that great. We're going to go back to the smaller bit now and go through the actual boat. That way it gives the screw something to grip and grab onto. So we ended up with 11/64 bit to get through the stainless and to clear the stock rub rail screws that size. All right, so now we've put in our 7/64. We're going to drill through our stainless hole that we just got done and go through the boat. All right, so now that all our holes are through, we're able to mount our light and our bracket. I'm going to do some wiring and get some lengths of wire through there, because when I do it for the final time, I want to be able to put my marine silicone in there and get everything sealed up and done there at one shot. So I'm going to do some wiring right now, and then we'll be back to install it all. All right, so before I do the wiring and stuff, just I like to fit things and make sure it's all going to fit in good and flush, and just to make sure my holes and everything are right. So I'm going to mount my plate up against my rub rail just to see how it's gonna sit. So we're gonna do that now. I've switched over to an impact driver. Just a word of caution with the impact driver and stainless. The friction when it's going through that fiberglass and stuff is gonna get hot, and stainless steel screws will break off. So just be very careful, go slow, and when I get close to the end, I'm going to stop with this and screw it in with my hand thing. I do believe that's the better way to do it instead of just trying to drive this through there, because if you hit it too hard, you've got a chance of stripping out your hole and making just not a good seat. So now we're down and we're close. I'm going to switch over and get my hand screwdriver and just finish it off. That way I know it's good and tight, and I'm not taking a chance of stripping out any of that. All right. So that's in, and man, that is completely flush with the rail. Looks awesome. I'll zoom up on that so you guys can see it. I'm gonna grab the GoPro as well and just give you a different angle. So here's looking down the rail. Sun's got it a little bit, but as you can see, it's a great fit. Really factory looking. You can see a little bit of gap just right there in the top, but that's not going to be a problem either, because when we install this light, we're going to silicone around all that, and we'll actually fill it with silicone to where it'll seal off that top part. And then we'll also back these back out, fill those holes with silicone just to make it really watertight. All right, I want to show you guys just some stuff that I'm using to do my connections. This is just a strand of wire. I'm going to run it through the hole, and my wire for my navigation lights are just inside here. So I'm going to run these through, and then I'm going to go do the other side, and once I get that done, I'll be able to get in there and hook everything up, and we'll show you the final product. But I'm using butt connectors here for my light to this wire, which, as you can see, this wire here is a good bit thicker and heavier wire. I use 16 gauge just about in everything on the boat, just because it's not any more expensive really, and it'll hold a lot of amperage, or a lot more, plenty for lights and things, which, as you can see, these are extremely small. I used the 20 on my strippers, and I believe it's probably a 22, which I feel like Taco Marine should probably go with a little heavier gauge wire, because you can see where the solder I was doing there too, it charred that a little bit, didn't burn through it, but I'd like to see a little bit thicker wire there, maybe a little bit better grade insulation. But I use the butt connectors that are heat shrink, and then they've got a solder ring inside. So when you heat them up, that solder melts and contracts, and that does a really good job there. So that is really nice and tight. I am going to add a piece of heat shrink over top of both of them, and then I always take some liquid tape and just go around the edges, just to make sure it's all totally sealed and watertight. Probably overkill, but I'm rewiring this boat and want it to be right from the get-go, and don't want to have to get back in here and mess with anything because you skipped a step, or I was feeling lazy that day. So I want to do everything extremely overcautious and have it right and done the first time. So I'm going to finish up this stuff here, and we're going to move on. All right, I want to show you guys just some stuff that I'm using to do my connections. This is just a strand of wire. I'm going to run it through the hole, and my wire for my navigation lights are just inside here. So I'm going to run these through, and then I'm going to go do the other side, and once I get that done, I'll be able to get in there and hook everything up, and we'll show you the final product. But I'm using butt connectors here for my light to this wire, which, as you can see, this wire here is a good bit thicker and heavier wire. I use 16 gauge just about in everything on the boat, just because it's not any more expensive really, and it'll hold a lot of amperage, or a lot more, plenty for lights and things, which, as you can see, these are extremely small. I used the 20 on my strippers, and I believe it's probably a 22, which I feel like Taco Marine should probably go with a little heavier gauge wire, because you can see where the solder I was doing there too, it charred that a little bit, didn't burn through it, but I'd like to see a little bit thicker wire there, maybe a little bit better grade insulation. But I use the butt connectors that are heat shrink, and then they've got a solder ring inside, so when you heat them up, that solder melts and contracts, and that does a really good job there. So that is really nice and tight. I am going to add a piece of heat shrink over top of both of them, and then I always take some liquid tape and just go around the edges, just to make sure it's all totally sealed and watertight. Probably overkill, but I'm rewiring this boat and want it to be right from the get-go, and don't want to have to get back in here and mess with anything because you skipped a step, or I was feeling lazy that day. So I want to do everything extremely overcautious and have it right and done the first time. So I'm going to finish up this stuff here, and we're going to move on. So now I've got a good piece of heat shrink on there, and I'm actually going to use a lighter that's a little less aggressive to heat shrink that down, just because I don't want to burn any of the insulation on those small wires that the Taco lights have on them. There we go. Once you get that to where you're good and happy with it, I am going to put a little bit of liquid tape just up on the edges of it, just for extra precaution, and really just makes it really watertight. And you don't have to do much, just a little bit around the edges is plenty. It'll actually run and fill up the hole and seal up really nice. All right, so that's that. Now we're ready to push it through, mount it, and move on to the next side. So now I've got a good piece of heat shrink on there, and I'm actually going to use a lighter that's a little less aggressive to heat shrink that down, just because I don't want to burn any of the insulation on those small wires that the Taco lights have on them. There we go. Once you get that to where you're good and happy with it, I am going to put a little bit of liquid tape just up on the edges of it, just for extra precaution, and really just makes it really watertight. And you don't have to do much, just a little bit around the edges is plenty. It'll actually run and fill up the hole and seal up really nice. All right, so that's that. Now we're ready to push it through, mount it, and move on to the next side. All right, guys, so now we're ready to install the light for the final time. And as you can see, I've got the wires hanging out there. I'm going to pop open my marine silicone and just shoot some silicone in all my holes, make sure everything's just nice and sealed up, and then we're going to push it back and mount our plate for the final time, and that's going to be it. All we have left to do is go in and hook up all our wires, and we'll have our navigation lights on and ready. All right, so now we are going to silicone. I'm going to silicone my screw holes, silicone my light around my light fixture and everything to where that's going to slide back in there, and there's not going to be any issues of any water ever getting in it. I'm just using just Star Bright marine silicone. I got it on Amazon, so just good stuff made for marine applications, and that's what we're going to use. All right, so now we're going to put in our sealant. I'm just pushing my rail back, squeezing this in. One thing to always remember with the sealant is to keep your hands towards the bottom, especially when your sealant is new, so it doesn't blow the back end out of it. I have had that happen. That was good and filled up. We can wipe off any excess. It doesn't dry that fast, so you'll have plenty of time. And then I've already put some around my light and shoved it back, just checking to make sure all the edges are sealed up good. So that's good. All right, so now we are ready for our final plate here. Lights pushed back, flush against the rail of the boat. I'm going to put the plate on and we'll be done. Again, I'm going to start out by using the impact, get close, and then I'll finish it up with my hand screwdriver. Get a little bit of silicone squeezing out around, which is what you want. You know, everything's going to be good and watertight. We got our screws in as far as we're going to go with the impact driver, and I'm just going to finish it up now with my hand screwdriver to get it all the way down and tight. All right, well, there it is. I'll zoom up on it just to see the final product, and we're going to do the other side. I'm not going to film the whole other side because it's going to be the identical thing. So I'll show you this one zoomed up. I'm going to do the other side, and then once we get everything hooked up and turned on, I'll come back just so you guys can see the final product lit up. All right, guys, so we're back, and as you can see, our install is complete and all the wiring went really nice. I've got to get in here and clean up some wires and just tie them up, get them up out of the way of everything, but it was a very good install, pretty easy. The hardest part though was the stainless steel insert, was just being able to drill through it. And on the other side, my bit that I was using on my Dremel, it had enough as well. So what I did was I took one of the cut wheels and I just went real easy and was able to make a hole through it with that. And once you get a hole through it, then you can start just, you know, a small bit and stepping up and stepping up. But make sure to have good drill bits and plenty of oil when you're going through this rail. And again, another note with this install is 5/8. That did great. It was tight. Remember to use the silicone in all your holes and everything in your mounting. But all in all, this is definitely a do-it-yourself project that you can do on your own. So just keep watching our review videos, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell. Live blessed. All right, guys, so here's the final product. I don't have anybody else here to help me switch on and off, but I've got it wired up directly to the battery because I don't have my switch panel yet. But as you can see, they are extremely bright. There's your starboard light. We'll come over here in our port. Looked great. The install went well. Wired up nice. And there she is, the Taco Marine rub rail LEDs.